Courtrooms rely on trust. Trust that every word, every timeline, every statement is accurate. But in the Emmanuel Haro case, that trust was shaken. During a recent hearing, one detail didn't match the evidence on record. Small at first glance, it cast a shadow over the testimony. For a trial already filled with doubt, this single contradiction raised questions of credibility. Was it an oversight or something deeper? Tonight we examine the detail that didn't add up, why it matters, and how it could shape the next steps in this closely watched case. Before we dive into today's story, kindly subscribe to our Shadow Detective channel if you believe in fighting for justice. Kindly help us reach 100 subscribers, and we believe that with energy and support, we will achieve it. Let's build this community that refuses to stay silent, to stop asking the hardest question of all. But why? Every view, every comment, and every subscriber is a stand against silence and a step toward truth for those who can't fight for themselves. In every courtroom, truth is meant to stand above all else, the foundation on which justice rests. But in the Emmanuel Haro case, that foundation has been shaken. During a recent hearing, one statement made under oath, spoken with confidence, didn't align with the evidence on record. At first it seemed minor, tucked within hours of testimony, yet its impact cast a shadow across the trial. In a case this sensitive, even a single discrepancy can change how the story is understood. Tonight we examine why this statement matters, what it reveals about credibility, and how it could shape what comes next. To see why this detail is so important, we first need to step back and look at the case itself. The story began in mid-August, when 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro was reported missing. His parents, Rebecca and Jake Haro, told authorities he had been taken, sparking an urgent search that involved investigators and volunteers across neighborhoods and roads. But as days passed, the initial abduction story began to unravel. Timelines were reviewed, accounts compared to digital records, and questions arose that were increasingly difficult to answer. Prosecutors later claimed Emmanuel had died days before the 911 call, not been taken by a stranger. The resulting charges shocked the community and drew national attention. In the recent hearing, one statement stood out. Delivered under oath, it didn't match timelines, conflicted with records, and contradicted earlier statements, turning a single detail into a key question in the case. Inside the courtroom, there was no dramatic outburst, just a quiet ripple of reaction. Attorneys shifted in their seats, observers leaned forward, and even the judge appeared to take careful note as the words hung in the air. What should have been a straightforward moment instead raised new questions. The statement, delivered confidently under oath, didn't align with established timelines, phone records, or previous testimony. Investigators had already compiled detailed records, and this contradiction now stood out sharply. For the defense, it became a key point to question the reliability of the state's case, suggesting that other details might also need closer scrutiny. The prosecution, on the other hand, leaned into the moment, emphasizing that consistency and accountability are critical, and that a contradiction can reveal important insights about credibility and truth. In a trial where every detail matters, this single inconsistency became more than a minor slip, it was a turning point. It challenged the reliability of the person who gave the statement, influenced how the courtroom perceived the broader case, and highlighted how perception and fact are tightly linked in the pursuit of justice. What was said in that moment now sits at the heart of the trial, demanding attention, explanation, and careful consideration by everyone involved. The prosecution, however, leaned into the contradiction with equal determination. Rather than dismissing it, they emphasized how important it was. To them, the inconsistency was not a weakness in their case, it was a red flag that spoke to credibility. They argued that when testimony doesn't match the record, it doesn't erase the truth, it exposes it. Outside the courtroom, the response was just as strong. Members of the public, already invested in the case, reacted with confusion and frustration. Social media filled with questions. Was this an honest mistake, or did it mean something more? Commentators debated what it might signal, while legal analysts weighed in on how contradictions like this can alter the perception of an entire trial. The headlines captured the moment with sharp focus. News outlets across the region, and even nationally, ran stories about the testimony that didn't match. It became not just a courtroom development, but a public talking point, one that reignited conversations about trust, truth, and accountability in the justice system. At the center of all of this is a reminder: in a trial, credibility shapes everything. Jurors don't just weigh evidence, they weigh the reliability of those presenting it. A single contradiction can raise questions that echo far beyond one hearing, changing how every future word is heard and how every action is judged. When a contradiction appears in testimony, it does more than create a moment of pause, it reshapes the entire atmosphere of a trial. That is why this particular detail carries such significance. In the justice system, words spoken under oath are meant to be the clearest form of truth. They are protected by law, measured against records, and trusted as the foundation for decision-making. When those words don't align with evidence, the impact reaches far beyond a single statement. It raises questions about credibility, about accuracy, and about whether every other piece of testimony can be trusted. This is why the moment matters. In upcoming hearings, attorneys will not only revisit the contradiction, but also build strategies around it. The defense will likely highlight it again, framing it as proof that the state's case is less certain than it appears. The prosecution, meanwhile, will continue pressing the idea that the inconsistency reveals something deeper, that it speaks to reliability, not weakness. What this means for the trial is clear. Every future witness, every future statement, will now be under even closer scrutiny. The margin for error has narrowed. Attorneys, jurors, and even the public will be listening more carefully, searching for consistency, measuring every word against the evidence already presented. At its core, the importance of trust inside a courtroom cannot be overstated. Once that trust is shaken, it is difficult to restore. A single contradiction, if left unanswered, can create doubt that spreads to every corner of the case. And for a trial already carrying the weight of national attention, the cost of that doubt could shape the outcome in ways no one expected. In short, this was not just about one detail, it was about the principle that truth must remain steady, even under pressure. Because without that, the foundation of justice itself begins to waver. As the hearing came to a close, the contradiction lingered. It was not shouted, it was not dramatic, but it was undeniable. A single detail, a single statement, had shifted how the entire case is now being viewed. For those inside the courtroom, it was a reminder that truth is rarely simple. Every timeline, every record, and every testimony must be examined with care. The weight of one inconsistency does not erase the broader case, but it changes how each piece of evidence is interpreted moving forward. For the families involved, the community watching, and the nation following along, this moment underscored something larger. The search for truth is fragile. It relies on accuracy, consistency, and honesty at every stage. When even one detail doesn't align, it casts a shadow not only on the person who spoke it, but on the process itself. Trials are not only about evidence, they are also about trust. Trust in the court, trust in the witnesses, trust in the system to carry truth forward, even when it is uncomfortable. And when that trust is questioned, the pursuit of justice becomes more complex. The Emmanuel Haro case has always been layered with emotion, doubt, and unanswered questions. But now, with testimony being challenged, it has entered a new phase, one where credibility will likely matter as much as the facts themselves. As we move forward, one thing is clear: the truth may not always arrive quickly, but it always leaves a trail. And in this case, that trail has led us to a single contradiction that could shape everything that follows. The Emmanuel Haro court case is far from over, and the testimony we've examined tonight is only one chapter in a much larger story. As new hearings unfold, more details will surface, and with them, more questions about what really happened and how the truth will ultimately be measured. What we do know is this: in a courtroom, every word matters. Every statement has the power to shape how the case is seen, not just by the judge and attorneys, but by the public who is watching so closely. That is why this contradiction matters. It is not just a detail, but a reminder that truth and trust walk side by side. We will continue to follow this case carefully, step by step, as the search for clarity continues. If you want to stay updated on every development, make sure you're subscribed and share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Because in the end, it isn't just about what was said in one courtroom, it's about what those words mean for justice and for the truth that everyone is waiting to see revealed.